Jai Hind students. We are on the chapter how do organisms reproduce, and today in this video we are going to cover the topic female reproductive system. So for that, let's first draw the diagram of female reproductive system, then we'll come to know all the reproductive parts in the human female body. So before that, first let us see that what is actually the female reproductive organ. So the female reproductive organ is called ovary. Ovary in females is present in a pair, that is there are two ovaries in a human female. Then in human female body there is a duct, and this duct is called as a fallopian tube. Through this fallopian tube, out comes out from the ovary, and then at this place only fertilization happens at a particular specific area or a place. Then after this there are some accessory organs . These accessory organs in human female are like uterus, vulva, vagina. So these are some human female reproductive systems or reproductive parts which are involved in the human female reproductive system. So they are having ovary, which is in a pair, they are having a fallopian tube, which is again in a pair, and then accessory organs like uterus, vulva and vagina. So let's start with all of these one by one in a diagram. So as you can see, this is a structure of a Alright, so this is a typical structure of a human female reproductive system. So as here you can see this place, this is called as a uterus. Uterus is a pear-shaped structure which is inverted. So this is inverted, just opposite side of a pear. That kind of a structure is this. In the uterus, embryo develops, otherwise it is there to collect the mucus and then the blood vessels which are further responsible for the menstrual cycle. So this uterus is actually a pouch, a bag kind of a structure which is meant to carry the embryo and develop it inside this. Here you can see these two structures. These are the ovaries. Okay, so ovary is present in a pair which is like the almond shape, and the work of ovary is two. Its two functions are there. First one is to produce ova, and second one is to produce the hormones. Now these hormones which are produced from the ovary are called estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen's work is to maintain the follicle in the ovary. Okay, so follicles of the ovary are maintained by the estrogen, whereas progesterone is released from the corpus luteum, and then its work is to support in the pregnancy time. So these two hormones are secreted from the ovary, and ovary also secretes the ova. So these are the two functions of the ovary, which is almond shaped structure. This tube kind of a structure which you can see is the duct and called as a fallopian tube. So this is the fallopian tube. This area which you can see, this is the next part in the female reproductive system, which is called as the cervix. Here cervix is plugged in with the mucus, and then down below it there is a vagina, which is again a birth canal, which acts as a birth canal, and also for the menstruation happens through this canal only. Cervix is an area which is plugged in with the mucus, so that when embryo is developing inside this, it doesn't comes out through this canal, right? So for that purpose, cervix is meant over here and is always closed. Only at the time of a parturition this gets ruptured and the embryo comes down, or the baby which is developing, that fetus, comes out of the body. So these are the some typical parts of the human female reproductive system. You have seen uterus, you have seen ovary, this ovary which is 2 in number in a pair, this fallopian tube. Now let us see them one by one. Let's start from the ovary. So now, as you know that this is ovary, and this ovary is responsible for producing female gamete. That gamete is called as ova, or in plural if you will say it is ovum, or you can also say the egg cell. Okay, so you can say any of these words for this. Its another function is to produce the hormone. These are the sex hormones and named as estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen, as you know, is here, which comes from the granulosa cell of the ovarian follicle and is there to control the follicular phase in the ovary, inside this ovary. Now what is this follicular phase and what is this follicle? So see, in human female there are the follicles which keeps on developing each and every month. So now these follicles which are here, they are at the primary level, then they get converted to the secondary follicle and then tertiary follicle. The tertiary follicle which is there, that when it gets mature, after its maturation, the ovum which is here, this ova comes out of that follicle. So the estrogen's work is to develop this follicle, which you can see, I can write over here, this follicle's development, and then after to get it ruptured on its maturation and release the ovum from it. So this is the work of estrogen hormone. Now let's see next about the progesterone. Now what happens? These estrogen's work has got over here after the removal of egg cell from there. Now when egg cell comes out of this follicle gets converted into the corpus luteum. Here I am writing corpus luteum. Now this corpus luteum which has got developed over here, slowly and slowly by the 28th day of the menstrual cycle, it will start getting degenerate, right? So now when it will start getting degenerate, this progesterone is active, and because of this progesterone it is slowly and gradually getting degenerate, and when this corpus luteum will degenerate and progesterone will increase, then after that this menstrual cycle will again start happening from the uterus side. Alright, so hope that these two hormones are clear to you. Now let's see the next part about the fallopian tube. Fallopian tube, as I have told you, that this is present on both the sides, and this fallopian tube acts as a duct which is responsible for receiving the egg cell from the ovary, right? So now this portion which you can see has having a finger-like structure, this is called as a fimbriae. This place just next to this structure is called infundibule. Here this junction is called as ampulla, and this area is called as isthmus, and all together they makes a word, a duct, which is called as a fallopian tube, right? Same way as it is here, the same way this is present at this side also. So what happens when ovary develops the egg cell, and on the 14th day after the menstrual cycle, which comes on between 14th day, the egg which comes out of the of your follicle, then this fimbriae is present over here, which receives the egg from the ovary, and then after through this fimbriae's way, the egg comes over here in infundibule, then it reaches over here in ampulla and stays here for 1 day, for 24 hours, and wait for the sperm cell to come and fuse. If in meanwhile sperm cells comes and fuse over here, then the fertilization happens. Fertilization, that means fusion of egg cell plus the sperm cell, which will be is equal to zygote. Alright, and further this zygote will divide, and then it will slowly and gradually convert into the embryo. Now you got to know that the fertilization where happens. So fertilization in the human female happens at the ampulla isthmus region. Okay, here the egg cell waits for the sperm cell to come, and if a sperm cell comes at the time, then they both get fused and make the zygote. Now after this, the zygote which is here, it goes on with the several divisions, and then later on it comes over here in the uterus and gets implanted. Implanted means it gets settled over here, attached to the cavity of the uterine cavity, and starts its function. So now we'll see that also, but before that let us see the uterus and its different parts. Okay, so this is the uterus, which is a kind of an inverted pear shaped. Now this uterus is again divided into 3 different protective layers. Alright, so the inner one, which is here, this inner layer is called as endometrium. The middle or the second one, which is here, this is called as the myometrium, and the third one, which is the outer one, the last one, is called as perimetrium. The layer which is innermost and called endometrium, this is made up of blood vessels plus mucus. Now this endometrium layer gets ruptured when there is a menstrual cycle to get happen. That time this endometrium layer gets ruptured, and the blood vessels and mucus which is here, it sheds off through vagina, and the menstrual cycle happens. But when this menstruation doesn't take place, and this will happen only when the zygote has got made or the zygote has got fertilized. So if zygote has come over here and it has got implanted into the different cells form, so now what will happen here inside this uterus, baby will start developing, and that zygote will get implanted over here. At that time this is not going to get shed off because of the hormones, and this blood vessel and mucus is going to provide support to the baby which is developing inside the uterus. So this is the work of endometrium layer. First, it gives support to the baby, it gives cushion to the embryo. Secondly, it is made up of a blood vessel and mucus, so it gets shed off at the menstrual cycle time. second layer is called myometrium. This layer's work is to get contract when the time of parturition comes. So when the time of a parturition word means the time when baby delivers. So at that particular time a message is sent, and through that message oxytocin hormone starts getting secreted, and because of that hormone this myometrium layer starts getting shrink, and when this layer gets shrink then the baby slowly and gradually starts coming down, and through vaginal canal the birth takes place. And the last one is perimetrium, which is not much playing role in this particular part, but still it is the outermost layer of the uterus. Now next to this is the cervix, which is made up of mucus. This mucus is here to plug in the area of this cervix so that it keeps closed and baby doesn't deliver. So it gets ruptured only when the parturition times comes and this myometrium starts getting shrink. So at that time it gets ruptured and baby comes out. Next to that there is a vagina, which is responsible for two things. First, it is the birth canal, and second one, it is also responsible for the menstrual cycle. So it is a part for that cycle too. So these are the female reproductive system parts in the human female. All these are the parts which play major role for the human reproductive system. Further, in next video we'll see about the fertilization and parturition and implantation as well. So thank you for watching the video.